episode is sponsored by Raise Tech, end-to-end IT solutions for your business growth.
Hello, everyone. This is On the Agile Couch, the 4th season. It's actually one of the last episodes which you will be able to see or hear during our 4th season. And I'm really glad that today we have a guest from Rise Tech. It's Ivan. Hello, Ivan.
Hi. Hi.
Hey. Yeah, like maybe you can then again just mention about yourself, and then we will go to the topic of today's podcast.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Ivan, and I'm actually from Croatia. I do work remotely. For last 2 years, I have been kind of like a team lead for the backend developers. A great group of like 10 people who I work very closely with, and we interact with a lot of different parts of the company and work on different products. On top of that, I'm also doing a PhD in stuff like cybersecurity, distributed systems, and so on. So there's a lot of technical knowledge happening in the background of all of that. Yeah, I think those would be like a really short things to say about myself at the moment.
Cool. And you've mentioned a few things. One, cybersecurity, which I thought, we didn't have actually podcast about that. So you need to aim to have a cybersecurity topic for next season. But for now, you already mentioned that you work in a team or squad. I know, it doesn't matter how we call it.
Yeah.
For a backend lead, is that right?
Yes. So it's working sort of like a functional team lead, more than a project team lead or product team lead. So the main responsibilities there is just kind of guiding the careers of different people that you work with, kind of interacting with their different seniorities and guiding them on what their next career steps could be, but also kind of assessing their current state that they are at in their career. So if someone is maybe like a junior, what do they need to do to get to mid-level, right? Or maybe saying, okay, maybe this person something between junior or mid, what is missing for them or what they could improve to actually further their career. Or sometimes we even get cases where it's like a person wants to switch to completely different branch.
Oh, yeah.
So I had cases where, for example, Java developers wanted to switch to .NET, which is where I'm kind of the expert. And the idea was to generate and prepare this plan for them on how to actually make that switch between two kind of different functional areas, functional teams.
That's actually, again, really nice to have these kind of things, because a lot of teams, even companies, struggle to have this development plan where people could clearly see what they have to do or achieve to actually, step over the career plan. But we are not about that today. Today the talk is about the cross-functional teams, and because they have their own specific challenges. Some of them maybe works with the specific teams, but cross-functional teams definitely have a bit different challenges. And as we talking about cross-functional, I guess you are from the cross-functional team. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, currently, yes. But I also worked in different ways before, even where some companies do prefer to have actually dedicated departments with each function inside that department. So, for example, if it's an IT company, you would have like a entire backend department. You have like a web department for front-end, mobile department for just mobile development, nothing else, right? And then you have like a separate QA, right, for testing, separate like release DevOps stuff, just department for that. So yeah, a lot of different companies work in different ways, but in a way you always have this kind of cross-functional team that gets formed for a particular project. So yes, I would say that for most of my career, I have worked in this sort of like cross-functional team, be it on this bigger level where you're just part of the huge department that interacts with different other departments, or just part of smaller teams that have people with different functional roles.
Yeah.
You would have like a backender, frontender, QA, business analyst, right, or Scrum Masters, etc.
Mhm. And you already mentioned that you even work, with this functional teams. What's the maybe biggest benefit of the then cross-functional? Well, why the companies choose to have cross-functional teams? Maybe you have your opinion about that.
Generally, it does offer a bit of benefit in form of different perspectives. It does also offer more points of contact between different functional areas. Of course, you have to kind of nurture that in order to actually get to that, and we'll get into that a bit later, of course. But it does offer a bit more interaction, and with that interaction, you increase the chance that the product or project you're working on will be more successful. So you don't have these, I would say, like bureaucratic barriers between different departments that might block communication or just interaction between different areas that you're working on.
Oh yeah, I think you're definitely on the spot when you mentioned that you have these. Yeah, I would call it better decision or faster decision making when you don't need to reach out somewhere to gather all the needed information. You kind of should have everything inside of your team, so it's creating way faster decision making from the perspective of that. But at the same time, I guess cross-functional teams have their own challenges, and let's talk a bit about that. What like main or the challenge which mainly pops in your head regarding the cross-functional teams?
Well, over my career, there has been sort of the things that pop up relatively frequently, where over some time you do notice all these things that kind of get exposed, and it's not really obvious. For example, like the moment you join a company, it's not really obvious that's happening, right? It might not even be obvious like after a year or something, but over time, where you see the pattern, some patterns appear, right? You kind of learn these kind of lessons of how things actually work inside each company. So I think one of the big ones is, there are a couple of them, we can go through them, but one of the big ones is definitely tendency to kind of get boxed into different slots. Because even though it's not like these separate bureaucratic, departments, you are most likely forming a team from different functions, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different, positions, and so on. So you do have this tendency of, let's say, kind of developers sticking together, business sticking together, maybe even, subsets of those kind of sticking together where they are more comfortable in their own roles and with their peers that are more similar to them. So you have to really look carefully at the team dynamic as it evolves to make sure that this doesn't happen, that this cross-functional team doesn't actually become not cross-functional, right? That it doesn't devolve into just these silos where it's kind of each person for their own, right? Each silo for their own. So that can be really dangerous, and there are ways you can kind of try to evade it. Open communication, where you kind of break those barriers, where you kind of involve the entire team into really important decisions, where they feel like they have this level of ownership on all of the things they're working on, and that they cannot play this, which is another point, they cannot play this, blame game. They cannot do things like, my team did that, I did that, but this other team, they're late, they're behind, or maybe they're even ahead, and they're kind of blocking us, and so on. All these things that can happen, natural, because we are all humans, right? In the end of the day, you have to keep this kind of level of professionalism there and try to break them down by being, I think, honest, and trust is really important. So in order to nurture that, You have to show that you're kind of vulnerable. It's always us and not individual parts of the team. It's always the entire team fault if something goes wrong. It's always it's never individual parts of the team that did something wrong, right? So I don't know, a stupid example, something breaks in production, server is down or whatever, classic thing that can happen any day, right? You don't blame the person who is responsible, even though you might even know who is responsible, right? Especially when talking with a team and with the stakeholders, right? It really is important to protect the team dynamic, because the moment you don't do that, it kind of becomes this blame game and kind of breaks down into silos where everyone's kind of starting to really squish and really try to protect, right? Instead of innovate and advance the project or product they're working on, which is the ultimate goal, right? To actually have some kind of business value out of that. So yeah, I think that's really important in these cross-functional teams.
Yeah, I think you all mentioned this at least a few of them which popped in my mind from what you've mentioned, that lack of accountability. It's again it's the same even when you have not cross-functional but just functional teams, because then you're blaming different team and cross-functional team that can be inside of your team. But again, it's way faster to solve this discussions, because we are a team. We are working together. We are working. We know where we are free, where we are busy, and what this miscommunication from where it begins. So it's way then maybe even faster and easier. It should be, again, every case is different, but it should be way faster, more efficient to solve that. But one more thing which I really like that you mentioned, the workload when we have cross-functional and we still, let's say, working into the sprint perspective or iteration, the workload can vary, and then how to still be this to have this trust and focus as an entire team, and not this blaming game that, oh, look, during the sprint I have a nightmare of the workload from my, maybe as mentioned, that to fix this server, and then what are you doing, how are you helping me, and stuff like that. How do you then what's your, from your experience, how to act in these kind of situations?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question and really good point. I think in those situations, it's really important, if at all possible, to kind of have a vision for where the things are going, right? To kind of have the end goal, because then you can use this to kind of subjectively, it's no longer really objective, kind of subjectively motivate a team and show them, okay, this is where we're going, right? This is how we're getting there. And these are just like stepping stones in order for us to go there. And I've seen cases where that worked perfectly, right? But also had, unfortunately, cases during my career where it just didn't work like that. The moment you stop having this vision and kind of the roadmap to how to get to the end goal, right? The team feels disjointed because they don't have kind of the inspiration to stay together, right? They don't have inspiration to kind of ignore all these small things and work actually together to come for the common goal, right? So I think that's kind of how you can actually resolve that. Another way you can actually resolve it is by offering the entire team a voice when you want to actually search for this like higher objectives, when you want to search for, okay, this is the project goal, right? This is the project endpoint. If you actually revert it and not do things kind of top down, if you actually say, okay, this is what the business needs, you're smart people, right? I trust you. I hired you because I trust you. I will let you figure out the solution, propose different solutions, discuss, and kind of own the solution that you propose. And by doing that, you're kind of empowering your entire team. So it no longer becomes this thing where it can collapse, right? Because you have this kind of team ownership. They
Yeah.
are proud of what they're working on and so on. And by doing that, you kind of align everything perfectly, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it really it makes sense to have those. Even you mentioned, to have this trust, and then the transparency where we know, and then we still have this goal which we know that we have to achieve. Then I have a question from your experience.
Mhm.
Does the cross-function teams need more to develop themselves in a bit additional technology, so to be able to cover your team members from different technology? Does this happen in your surrounding, or usually we're still a cross-functional team and we're looking into our expertise and we're not touching what our colleagues actually doing?
Well, that's a really interesting question. One perspective is yes, but I would say there are like layers to that. So one thing is, other technologies that are used, but most likely when you're working on a project or product, you are working on particular features or particular parts of the application and product, right? You're not working on everything at once, right? So I think it's either balancing these technologies so that everyone is aware, but it's also on a minor scale, a scale that's below that, where you want different team members to cover and be exposed to all the parts of the application, right? Not just someone is an expert for this part of the application and this technology, right? You want to kind of force them out of their shell, right? They might be slower, but ultimately, by having team members cover all these different parts and being exposed to that, either a technological one, right, where they kind of cover each other technologies and functionalities, or just feature-wise on the project level, that can be really helpful there. So yeah, I think it can happen.
So, and I like that you mentioned that. And then, what do you think? Is it true that for the, well, again, it depends on the every team, but for the cross-functional team, it's really and way more important to carefully pick the team members. So the selection that people with necessary skills to form this cross-functional should be not only experts, but then at the same time should be good at collaboration and open-minded side. Is it, from your perspective, true, or again it's maybe a false statement or too harsh of a statement?
I think generally having a good mix of people is great. It does play into this whole abstract, culture, company culture, and stuff like that, which doesn't really have any meaning. But yeah, it's really great when you can find team members that work really well together. Um, it can work two ways, right? It can work one way where they're all great friends and colleagues, right? So there's this whole emotional and social component. But I also seen it work really well when it's just purely professional, right? And you kind of have very high standards of each other and you respect each other, but you keep it very professional. That can also work, right? So when it comes to cross-functional, I can see, I've seen examples of it working in both ways. I think it's up to then individual people to decide which way they prefer, right? In which environment they prefer to work in. Cases where it doesn't work, there are not many. Usually, mostly when the trust is broken, then bad things happen, right? But without that, most often the team does stay together. So yeah, I didn't have instances other than one I mentioned, where the trust is broken, where the team would just collapse on itself and wouldn't deliver the end result. Uh, so keeping the morale high in the team, keeping this idea that the team is protected, that you are standing behind them, that each team member is standing behind each team member. Uh, Miracles can happen.
Yeah, definitely. And one more thing, which I definitely noticing in my surroundings, which I guess you all did a bit even mention about that, that we should be open and then transparent as we can. But at the same time, when we have cross-functional team and that team have different experts, I would say like that, uh, is it sometimes it's harder to have this, visibility of what my colleagues actually do, how I can help from my side, because I don't know, maybe I'm different technology, or maybe I'm more of a business person, how I can help that one. How you think or what you would suggest to these type, if the cross-functional team have this, maybe again, even during the discussion, saying, look, I have no idea what you're working on. I'm a business, or I'm a developer, and I don't know what you're talking about from a business perspective. How to get this yeah, just
Yeah, that's a complex question, I would say. I think one of the ways that I found works really well, and I had it happen in the team where it was purely seniors, right? So very experienced people, small team, but very efficient, right? Um, so there wasn't like any juniors there or anything like that. And what they did is uh, they had this Agile Scrum daily, right? Where it was just, pure business side, right? Pure, okay, we completed this, we're working on this, these are the blockers, right? What you worked on, what you're working today, if there are any blockers, right? So purely, I would say almost bureaucratic, but you have this part covered. You are covered all the blockers and so on. But then you have kind of this dev meeting. I'm not talking from more dev perspective, but you have this like a dev stand up daily where you can exchange ideas, you can collaborate between different dev functional parts, right? For example, backend, front end, QA, and so on, right? Even business analyst, right? And you have this one place each day where everyone is welcome to share anything they want, right? Be it something cool they found, right? So you kind of have this interaction where people are saying, hey, I found this really cool thing, I want to share it with my team. And then others become interested, right? Others become engaged in that. Others become you kind of start getting respect towards that person, they share this knowledge with you, they show you, hey, this is a really cool thing, maybe we can integrate it into project or product, right? So that really works great. Other examples in the same meeting that can happen is you can do like pair programming sessions, right? Where someone is stuck on a problem and they try it, right? So let's say they mentioned there is a blocker on daily, right? On the business daily, then they tried for a couple of hours and then there is dev stand-up, right? And then they researched the problem, they kind of interacted through all of that, they tried to solve it, didn't work. Okay, let's try to figure out. And there's this time slot every day that you can expect that, right? So you kind of have the expectation, I'm not going to be called at random point in the time, I'm going to be like interrupted. But there's this platform where I'm free to share if I want to. There's no obligation, right? So there's no requirement that, like in the normal stand-up, right, where you have to like say, okay, I work on this here. Here, if you don't have anything to say, you don't have to, right? So you just have this platform where you're free to share and ask for help openly without any judgment, right? Without any, oh, you didn't complete this, why is taking 10 days or something, right? There's no judgment like that. We are there, in this case, just developers, right? We all been in that situation, we all understand there's literally no judgment, just say, okay, let's solve this, let's move on. So I had cases where, we had like 10 things solved in half an hour, right? During that time. So like it's really efficient, and it kind of even people start asking for it. Sometimes we say, okay, there's stand up tomorrow. There's like a lot of things to do, but no, okay, I want it. I have this problem. I want to resolve. I want to share with you, pick your brain. Because you have all these people. You have like, let's say 10 people, the entire team coming, technical knowledge about the product, about the project, and all the business things. And they're coming there and just, really focusing, okay, let's solve this problem, let's solve this problem, let's solve this problem. And you kind of have this bond that gets created in a cross-functional team where everyone knows, okay, these are the problems, this is how we solve them. Now you kind of share knowledge inside the team as well, right? I don't know, 6 months ago, oh, we had that problem, we discussed it, we spent like, I don't know, 2 days trying to solve the problem. Oh, it appears again. You may still know the answer because you have the whole team to kind of support you and to kind of do this knowledge sharing between them. So yeah, it can work really wonders. So that's what I found.
So to have this booked space for the open discussion, problem solving, or in general, any topic which would be, helpful to discuss as a team. Is that right? Something like that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I have even one more suggestion with that, which I used. I have kids, so try, if someone will saying, I don't understand what you're talking about. Try to soften your technical things and try to explain as simple as you can, because we are not every, if I'm technical guy, not every person in my team is technical. So try to change your approach, how you even, explaining or providing the information. And that's where we should be aware, the team consists of the different people, different knowledge, but different personalities. We cannot choose and explain as I'm explaining to myself, or maybe to one of my great colleagues, which I, talk every day. We have different people which require different approach to actually make this to make it work. I would say like that. I'm curious, like if you could choose, again, it's depending on the project, but if you could choose to work in the cross-functional or just functional with your expertise, but which only contains from your main technology, main expertise team, which one would you choose personally?
Okay. Maybe a combination of both, right? You can also have that, right? So you can have, let's say, technical cross-functional, but then there's like a separate business side with customer support and all that kind of has this connection between them, right? Where you interact maybe on less frequently, maybe weekly or bi-weekly basis. That can kind of work real well, where I think you get the benefits of both worlds in that case, especially as, a more technical person. You get this really comfortable environment that you can grow technically in, and you can kind of focus on technical things on your like every day, but then you also get exposed to all the business side of things, right? Everything that actually comes on the plate as a problem to solve is something that does come from the business side, and you have a really great idea on why it's there, right? You have no questions. Hey, why is this here, right? Why is this requested, right? So that's not the question. So like maybe a combination of both is the best, as usual, it always depends. So
yeah, totally agree with you, because again, even thought if you think about this, I guess it depends on the project, on the many other aspects, but I think again it's and from my personal opinion, when you mentioned this, inside of my internal thoughts, they are clashing. Yeah, because as a developer, I like to work strictly focus set and stuff like that. And in cross-functional, it's a bit harder because the people close to you, not everyone is technical, and they maybe need to ask your question from different perspectives. They will ask, and then you will need to change your mind from this technical to a different mindset to find the solution and stuff like that. But at the same time, I personally felt that I develop myself and improve and learn way more working in the cross-functional team. Again, it's a personal experience, personal preferences, so it doesn't mean that it is right in every case, but that's my personal experience. So if I would even reflect this on myself, the question which I would choose, even like as you, I would like to work on this and that and this and that and then mix and stuff like that, because both have their own benefits, and it depends on what are your preference at this time. Do you want to maybe increase your knowledge into one specific area, and then it's way better to focus on that and then work on functional team, which that everyone is at the same expertise. If you want to expand your knowledge a bit broader, wider, and have to see different challenges, I would say like that, that's where cross-functional team is. Because at least even now when I'm reflecting, that the challenges from the cross-functional team is just so many different and random can be regarding the functional teams. So yeah, it's definitely not boring. I would say like that.
I would say I don't think I ever saw like a fully cross-functional team that has everything they need inside the same team.
Oh,
There's usually
still,
let's say marketing, right, or even research or something like that. That's completely separate department, right? So it's I would say, at least from my career, there's very rare that's like the fully cross-functional team that covers all the bases. You always have some
shared resources or stuff like that. That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you from now when I'm reflecting, I think you kind of on the point. Like, still, even with we talking about cross-functional teams, doesn't mean that you will have every function that's required to achieve your goals inside of this team. There will be still someone outside which we will be dependent, and we will have this like collaboration requirements.
It's also interesting, like as team lead, like is it better for, like, say, juniors to work in like this cross-functional team, or where they can kind of hone their technical skills fully and then kind of switch into this whole cross-functional team? Because this all, let's say, if they're technical, because that's easiest for me to speak of. I think it's actually better for them to start into the silo, and then as they kind of switch to mid-level, start taking all this business stuff in, then to be maybe overwhelmed by possibly things that won't help them advance their careers as fast, right? Because I mean, everyone kind of wants to move away from junior as soon as possible, right? As fast as possible. So I think how you get from junior to mid is, purely hard skills, purely technical. Then already at mid, you're kind of expected to be a bit more soft skills, stuff like that, a bit more, business sense. But from like the purely kind of optimization problem, for juniors, it's probably better to start in a silo where they can just hone their technical skills to a level where they can actually contribute and start where they're comfortable in their level of technical knowledge to actually be able to offer significant contribution for the business side of things. So there's some balance there on what you want to achieve and how. That's why usually companies also offer like dedicated teams and stuff like that for onboarding, or junior teams and stuff like that, where they can kind of get up to standard very quickly compared to I'm not a fan of just throwing juniors to the wolves, and letting them figure stuff out. I like for them to have like a clear direction they're going in and what their priority should be, so they can focus and kind of evolve their own careers as fast as possible. And this is where this, I think, also cross-functional team comes into and can play a huge role. So that you have silos, but not because of any miscommunication or trust issues, but you create silos so that you protect the juniors until they're ready to actually go outside their technical limits. As they expand them, as they learn more things, as they experience more things, and so on. We're getting a bit more philosophical now, but I think you can understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where it's might be too much.
And I think now I actually started my career in the style of focus where I worked into one focus area without any or additional distractions, and then I joined a cross-functional team, which I already was prepared. At the same time, I'm really curious if some of the listeners, maybe had this, that they were juniors and they joined cross-functional teams. What was your experience? Did you like it, or again, maybe you, the same as Ivan mentioned, maybe you would prefer to have focus and then join this a bit more chaotic environment? I would say, from my perspective, not every company, not every team are the same. Cool, but the time really flies. We're already talking for around half an hour. Maybe the last question, from these cross-functional, and you mentioned even during this our discussion many times, but there are team culture. How do you think, again, does it make sense to invest in team culture in cross-functional team? Because when we have this cross-functional, we have, let's say, I would call it many teams in a team, but then do we need to somehow openly again discuss what are our this huge team, not huge team, but in general, this team with the cross-functional culture is, and do we need to invest time into this? What are your opinion about that?
I think it really depends on the size of the team first, right? So if it's just a few people, I think they won't have any problems kind of forming their own culture, at least in a mini scale, on how they work, what their preferences are, and so on. I think as you scale probably to plus 10 people, right? I think it's important that every senior team member kind of sets the example on how the trust and honesty is respected, how everyone is able to kind of ask for help, and so on. So I think that all comes from this idea that you can ask any question, that like we are working together towards the common goal, right? So that's why this common goal for a team, like what is the purpose of the team? Like in order to have them inspired, you need this, right? If you don't have that, things just break apart. So I would say that's like the most important thing, right? Usually when you form a team, the business actually has a purpose, why it's forming this team, why it's hiring people, why it's moving them from other projects and so on, right? So yeah, should be. But really, if that is, inspiring to a team, if that's something that can get behind, then the culture will get formed on its own, right? The culture of the team will get formed around that goal, around that purpose, around that roadmap, right? So yeah, I think that's kind of what happens. Depending on how hefty your goals are, the team will figure out a way on how to achieve that and kind of form all their internal processes and how they work and how they interact with each other, how they communicate, and so on. So yeah, it's a really fun topic, I would say, on how to achieve that. So yeah.
Cool. So thank you, Ivan, for this time, for discussion, for your observation. And again, if you are listening to this podcast and you are working in cross-functional team or even functional team, and you have some of the stories to share from your perspective, do you like it? Do you not? What benefits you're seeing, what challenges you're seeing, and stuff like that. Leave a comment. I think that's again that's what we rarely do, to share these small things which others would read or listen and then, oh, actually, I like it or I dislike it, so I maybe will join, or if I will decide to change from one type of team to another, at least I will hear what's happening around me, in the different companies, different culture, and different things. So that's nice. Cool. So I thank everyone. Thank you, Ivan.
Yeah, thank
Any
you.
last words?
No, thank you for having me, and hopefully, we can do some of this again in the future.
Cybersecurity next season.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, take care.
Yeah.
Bye bye.